Good morning, everyone. I guess it's probably not morning for everyone, but good morning. I guess good morning, good afternoon, good night, whenever you're watching this, because not everyone watches live. So groovy. Um, it's another wonderful Sunday here in Texas. Hoping everyone's having a good day. Um, Howdy to Bat Mom, Susan Robertson, and MH1953 in the chat. Um, Today's actually going to be kind of short. I normally we'd be going through Hebrews, but something's been on my mind, and we've actually talked about a lot this week. Um, so I wanted to really get more into the biblical concept of it. And that's chaos. I'm really very much convinced at this point that um, I'm gonna kind of skip over the normal banter we do to give everyone a chance to hop on because honestly, this may not be a very long broadcast. Um, there's no need to gild the lily, so to speak. Um, I'm becoming convinced that the chaos and confusion is the point of a lot of this, particularly the like the paranormal stuff. I think it's easier to point to with things like I'll be doing a thing on the Abe assassination here in just a little bit. I shall probably do it on Monday. But I think the confusion is the point. The chaos is the point now. Particularly with all the crazy things, right? The paranormal stuff. I'm starting to just see it's when you take that step back, when you stop trying to ask, okay, well, what was it that was actually seen? If you're like, hold on, hey Titan. If you're like, well, hold on, there are physical things, right? And the physical things just look physical. We see them more often. Their behavior seems to make a little more sense. But when you get the weird stuff, you're like, okay, you take that step back. Everyone's trying to figure out, well, what is this one specific weird thing, right? Why do we have gargoyles? Why do we have goatmen? Why do we have these weird, the right? In it something occurred to me. It's like, well, hold on. If most of these things, particularly like the skinwalkers, like I love people who are like, hey, I saw a skinwalker. Well, I saw a Wendigo. I saw a right. And I'm like, hold up. How do you know that's what you saw? Right? I mean, really, stop to think about it. Particularly if you're something that you know to be a shapeshifter, how do you know that what you saw is what it is? When you can just put the label paranormal on something, meaning a non-naturally existing creature, regardless of its physicality, because I think that's a big problem. We're starting to say, hey, if it's physical, then it must not be paranormal. It's got to be a natural thing. I don't think that's the case at all. Bible's got plenty of times when something paranormal or supernatural, when it's all the same thing, interdimensional, all the same thing. It's clear when it clearly has a physical effect on the outside world, on the natural world, right? Once we can say something's paranormal or supernatural, you don't have to wonder about, well, is it this kind of a demon or is it this kind of a spirit or is it, you don't have to, right? Think about it. The Bible does not spend a lot of time on trying to give us categories per se for the supernatural, does it? It doesn't. All the things that people are like, well, it talks about powers and principles. That was meant, it was a metaphor for a real event, right? He was just, Paul was just saying he was using Roman authority, right, as a power structure. He was just saying, look, it would be like us saying there are presidents and or kings and emperors, and it was a way of authority, just saying there are supernatural forces above. He wasn't giving or trying to give an actual hierarchy for these demonic spirits over nations. In the Old Testament, it just talks about lying spirits or it talks about evil spirits. There's nothing in the Bible that's like, this is a shape-shifting trickster demon and this is this kind of thing and this is this. It just says lying spirit. I'm realizing, or the thing that I'm coming to is we're getting so focused on, because we have a modern scientific worldview, right? We don't want to know if it's just a bird. right? We're like, no, it's got to be this kind of bird, and this got to, and we want to see how it's related to the other birds, right? That's how we think. For example, you go back 500 years, beavers counted as fish legally. Now, it's not that the people didn't realize there was a difference between a beaver and a fish, or an otter and a fish. They recognized they were different things, but they counted. Again, it was more of a dietary law thing, right? Because it was like you can eat only fish, the whole Catholic thing. But they just said, okay, they count as fish. That doesn't make any sense to us in the modern day. It did to them, right? Because they had different ways of looking at the world. I'm starting to I'm pretty much convinced at this point that our desire to be able to put everything in a box is itself a deception. Not that we shouldn't do it for the natural world, things that we can properly observe, but we can't do that for the paranormal or supernatural, can we? No, we can't. And it knows that. These demons know us way better than we know ourselves. They know we're going to be like, well, was it a Wendigo, or was it a skinwalker? Was it a rake? That's the illusion. That's the confusion. And so what it does is we spend all this time trying to figure out what it is, not why it is, not what it's doing. What is its purpose? Right? All we got to know is, hey, these things aren't good. We shouldn't be hanging out with them. We should take them seriously. And it's that confusion, and it's breeding into everything else. Politics, the way we live our lives, the way we interact culturally. And so you'll notice in the description, we're going to be just reading through a number of verses. I'm not cherry picking specifically, because there's one where I'd like to revisit at a future date when it talks about women in the church and all that. Because in context, you're like, hold on, this is it actually means something different. But I want to focus on the idea of confusion and chaos, right? And yeah, MH1953's points, like, yeah, we're like, well, what color was it? And it's like, well, if it's gray or if it's off-white, then it's this thing. And if it's like a slight pink, then it's this other thing. And you're like, what? Stop. Yes, there are physical cryptids. They're evidence of the flood. That's my entire point. Again, London Hammer right there. Iron Pot and Coal right here. I'm the one who wrote the book, how UFOs and Bigfoot prove the Bible is true. Sequel's coming. It's less of a sequel, more it's a sequel in the way that Evil Dead 2 is a sequel to Evil Dead, which is that it's a bigger, it's the same book, just bigger, better, well-produced, whole 9 yards. Although I will say this, and I want to hear y'all's comments on this one. Should I put a chapter in that book, like the last chapter, or either first or last chapter, how Bigfoot and UFOs make you a better Christian? Or should that just be the actual sequel to the book? Meaning, I do the how UFOs and Bigfoot, the bigger expanded edition. Should the follow-up be how it makes you a better Christian? I think it should be a chapter. That's my thought. Moving on, though. We get so caught up in who built the guide stones, who blew them up, who killed, Prime Minister Abe, or former Prime Minister Abe. Why did he do it? Those are important questions to be answered, absolutely. But if we focus on it, we lose the plot. Forest for the trees, right? So I want to read a few verses and sort of point out, God is a God of order. Okay, MH1950. Well, MH1953 agrees with me. Clearly, I'm right. It should be a chapter. I'd still like to hear everyone else's opinion, though. It is this confusion, I think, is becoming the point. I think we lose the forest for the trees. God is not a God of confusion. And let me use the Bible to actually prove it, because, that's what we should be doing. So let me share my video screen here. Like I said, I've got all the references in the description, so you don't need to be looking things up on your own, right? You can just copy and paste later. So let me start off with 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 9. I probably should reposition my thing here. Yep. We're just going to read from the ESV because it's just a lot easier to read from. All right. And I think this is, I'm using this specifically because I think it is very much telling us where we are, right? I think this is what we are in the age that this is talking about. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, that should sound familiar, but denying its power. Avoid such people. For among them are those who creep into households and capture weak women, burdened by sin, and lead them astray by various passions. Always learning and never able to arrive at knowledge of the truth. So this verse 7 speaks to me a lot. We'll come back to it. Just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, so these men also oppose the truth, men corrupted in mind and disqualified regarding the faith. But they will not get very far, for their folly will be plain to all, as was of those two men. 7 always has stood out to me because it's very easy, and I again, this is my fault. This is my failure. I live in my head a lot. I just do. And it's very easy to get caught up in the information and the learning of the thing, right? That I tend to miss the point. And this is why I wanted to start with this section of the verse. Outside of the fact that it's clearly talking about the end days, the days that we're in. Now, they would point out, Paul would probably think he was in those days as well. But I got astronomy to back me up. But the point is, this is the era. I think this is the prophecy that we are living in right now. To Titan's point, it's sad that we're talking about people inside the church, not outside the church. But so is Paul. Paul is saying, right, that these are going to be people in the church. Again, having the appearance of godliness right here. Having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Does that not describe the American church today? Now, you may say, but that's not the church I'm in. Again, an individual church is not the church writ large. The church system is what we are talking about. But that is exactly what we're talking about. That's the church today. And right here at the beginning, right? There will come times of difficulty. I want to look at that. Normally, or the King James says perilous times, right? Difficult. Here it is. Yeah, I think this should be it. In the last eschatos, that's where we get eschatology from. What does difficult mean? What does perilous, translate as perilous times? What does it say? Fierce and perilous. So basically, this word is only used twice in the I guess the King James translation count. It's used fierce once. Let's see what's the context for that one. Oh, here it is. Matthew 8:28. So this is why we want to do these kinds of searches, right? We can see the context of the words because a definition, right, can mean different things, right, depending on context, but it gives the broader idea. Matthew 8:28 here is talking about the demoniacs, right? At Gergesenes, right? So it says that they were, the two men were possessed with devils coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man could pass by that way. Fierce. So when it's talking about these perilous times or these difficult times, right? It's that these are hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to take. It's like this is an era where it's going to be hard to bear. It's troublesome. I mean, the idea these things can be fierce and harsh and savage, right? It's not just, it's going to be awkward. It's not that it's saying, hey, it's going to be a little difficult. It's like, these are fierce times. These are, it's so, the word can be used of a demoniac whose fierceness is so great that people won't even go by there. That's the time frame that we're living in. I know some people probably look at these days, and we focus on them, though, right? How hard it is. And I was thinking about that too. And that's why I want to read these verses. Like I said, this is not really picking in so much as trying to give a broader idea of how we as Christians need to be looking at this. Because we need to realize where we are. And this is why John 16:33 is here. This is Jesus speaking. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. We get so caught up in focusing on the world that we forget Jesus told us this was all going to happen. The rest of the New Testament, that's the Holy Spirit speaking. So the Holy Spirit is the Spirit of Christ in us, speaking through those authors to us, saying he's telling us these things. This is what's going to happen. But we're told, hey, this tribulation stuff is coming, but it's okay because Jesus has already overcome it. We don't need to be worried about it. It doesn't mean we don't need to be aware of it, but we also shouldn't fear it, right? Let me do a few more verses real quick. I'm going to run through these real fast because I think there's a lot here. There really is. So Luke 21:26. This should sound very familiar because, again, it's Jesus talking about the end times. That people fainting with fear. Let me go to the above. There will be signs, the sun, moon, and stars. Revelation 12. And on the earth, distress of nations in perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Very quickly, I would argue that the powers of the heavens will be shaken. That is referring to that mid 7-year period when Satan and his angels are cast down, right? That is directly what he is talking about here. But the roaring of the sea and the waves, I think I think these are a lot of things, right, that are going to be happening. So the whole point is Jesus, again, this goes back to the idea that Jesus has told us what's coming, and we don't need to be worried about it. We don't need to fear. However, by the way, in context, Luke 21:27, it says, and then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud. So again, I do think that this is the powers of heaven. This is Satan and his angels being cast to earth, and for that last 3.5 years. But it's then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud. That's that scene, right, that we see in the sixth seal, when Jesus rolls God rolls the sky back like a scroll, right? That's the scene that he's talking about. Set up a few more. Matthew 24:6. You will notice a theme developing in the verses we're choosing. And you'll hear of wars and rumors of war. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. Patience. John 16:33. Oh, you know what? I've already done that one, didn't I? I'll read it again, though. I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you'll have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Yeah, I did it twice. That's okay. 1 Corinthians. Like I said, we'll come back to 1 Corinthians in the future. Actually, I may do a series of papers on it. I'll think about it. But 33. For God is not a God of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches and the saints. We're going to skip down to 40. But all things should be done decently and in order. And then the last one, Colossians 3:1-17. I'll hop back over to my screen, see if I've seen anything. Oh, hey, Overbelt. Welcome, welcome. Unfortunately, I can't read. I have to be on that other screen, so I'm just hopping in. Okay, last one. This one's going to be a little bit. So again, this is a Colossians, so it's Paul. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on the things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, that which is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil, desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these things, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked when you were living in them. But you must but now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Let's actually look at what does obscene talk mean? Because people always talk about that, so let's actually, again, just go back. That's interesting. It uses the NASB. An abusive speech. Interesting. Let's actually look at the Greek. This is why, whatever the English word is, go back to the Greek. Like Titan's question, what's the difference between remission and forgiveness? And the answer is fundamentally there is none, but rather it was the same word, just in different contexts, is how you would translate it. Because there is a difference in remission versus forgiveness in the English language, but again, the idea was the context that was changing it, but the core was the same. Foul speaking, low and obscene speech. That's it. Vile conversations, filthy communications. Shame. Okay, there just really isn't. Again, what does that mean? I like the idea of abusive speech, though. That's root word. Here we are. Oh, it's from two different root words. Interesting. Sorry, this is where I get distracted easily. Okay, filthy, baseness, dishonor, right? From the same base as shameful. And then the second one, logos, which is so yeah, just filthy word. Okay, base, shame, shameful word. Anyway, sorry, I get distracted easily, but y'all know that. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge and in the image of its creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, seeking psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. All right, we're going to take that down. I like that. Junkyard dog talk. I like it. Oh, Overbelt, I'm sorry you're sick, man. And trust me, we've all been there. The Sahara dust has done a number to my allergies. Believe me, I get it. So I ran through those verses. Why? Because the message is very, very clear. The end days, which are the days that we are in, are going to be perilous times. They just are. They are days when people are going to love themselves. They're going to love money. They're going to hate other people, right? And that's okay, because we know the confusion's coming, because it's all there to confuse us. The chaos is there to confuse. The chaos is the point. It's not so much just that we are to observe that the chaos is happening, but we as Christians have to look at it and say, we're not falling for it. We know what that's there for. We know that all of this confusion is to create the soil from which the Antichrist will emerge. That's all this is for. Again, we can't lose the forest for the trees. We get so, again, by we, I'm talking about large scale community here, not us on this channel. It's easy to say, well, the UFO phenomena and these supernatural cryptids and politics, it's all different things, but it's not. It isn't. It's all the chaos. It's the ideological subversion that gives us confusion and breeds chaos, so we can't come, again, to the scripture's point, knowledge and understanding. That's what it's designed to do. The chaos and confusion is the point. That's what it's trying to do. To MH 1953's point, that's why I ran through those scriptures. It is to keep our eyes on Christ. It is to become more like Christ. That's how we fight this. That's how we oppose it. It isn't by violence. It isn't through trying to be cool and hip. Hold on. There we are. It's in being more like Christ, right? It's in understanding the world's problems, but never focusing on it, right? We're to focus on that which is lovely, that which is pure. We're to set our minds on things above. When we look and when we do that, we have that broader perspective. It's like, guys, yes, there's always going to be trouble, but we don't have to be troubled by trouble sometimes, because we know what the end is, and we know the purpose of the trouble sometimes. These aren't the troubles that just exist and to be fixed or overcome as we bring the kingdom of Christ to the earth. It's that the chaos is designed to create confusion, to bring the Antichrist. That's what we have to engage it as. Titan's got a great question here. Jason, we know that Satan will. Let me put it up here. We know the time is short and there will be chaos, but at the same time, does the Bible say that people say peace and safety, then the end will come? Yes. So here's the thing. Hey, Ruger, welcome aboard. They aren't saying, hey, we're in a time of peace and safety. That's not really the context. That's what we've often thought. I think in the broader context, it's saying we need peace and safety. This is the person to give us peace and safety, right? This is the goal. We're gonna make from this chaos. We're gonna make peace and safety. That's what they're playing for. That's what they're trying to get done. So that's what we have to, think about it. Every time there's a terrible event with a gun, it's we need peace and safety by taking your guns. Yeah, that hasn't worked out historically very well, has it? We need peace and safety. You all need to get this experimental vaccine. And wear masks. And we need to keep your children out of schools because we need peace and safety. We need to track your actions on your phone for peace and safety. We need to put these people in jail because of peace and safety. They're not saying that it is peaceful and we are safe. It's saying this is what we need for these things to occur. And then people tend to give away their rights. They give away their power to obtain peace and safety. The chaos is what will give rise to the Antichrist, and that's where his power will come from. Peace and safety. Now, is it going to be the whole world saying peace and safety? That's a better question. But it's a question for another time. My point is, we are entering this age of chaos and confusion. And the chaos and confusion is the point. It is so that we don't recognize where we are. or what they are doing. It is to keep us occupied and so spinning our wheels, we don't see what's really happening. Again, with magician, right? An illusionist. That really attractive assistant is there to distract you. Sometimes she distracts you so you're looking at her instead of the magician. Sometimes it's to force you to look at the magician so that she can do what she needs to do. Sometimes the tricks are way more obvious than you realize. Same thing with where we are. Again, who built the Georgia Guidestones? Who blew them up? Not the point. The point is the confusion, the chaos. Again, why humans do what they do, that's one thing. But we have to remember Deuteronomy 32. It's the spirits above the nations. Satan is the god of this world right now, meaning he's the one sort of calling the shots. That's why he could offer the nations of the world to Christ. Right? That's the point. We have to always remember why a person does something is definitely less important than the spirit behind it. That's it. It's the confusion and the chaos that they want. Now, the person doing something may have an agenda all his own or her own, or a group may have their own beliefs. That's fine. And again, in their context, we should understand them, but we shouldn't focus on them as if that's the only thing happening. As Christians, we have the obligation and the ability to recognize that this is a bigger fight, and we need to. And we can't lose sight of the fact that there are these spirits and they're calling shots, and these people are doing it for the reason to bring out the Antichrist. Hey, Big Chungus. They create the chaos. They use it to take away your rights. Then you're under their thumb with a barcode on your forehead. You'll finally be safe. Yep, that's when the news becomes all sunshine and rainbows. It is. That's what is going to happen. It is. To Overbuilt's point, well, let me end it and I'll get the Overbuilt's comment. Again, we don't need to just fill time here. The point is, as Christians, we have the obligation to recognize where we are in history and recognize the chaos. We should be aware of the chaos, but we don't have to be immersed in it. We don't have to focus on it. We don't have to obsess on it. When we see something as supernatural, we can just say, hey, it's paranormal, it's supernatural, interdimensional, all the same thing. Great. We can't trust it. And maybe the reason it all looks different and it has all these weird characteristics is that those weird characteristics are telling us it is creating that chaos. So we get so caught up in the little things that we miss the point. To Overbuilt's point about the school thing. Yeah. So I saw an article in The Economist this week saying the school shutdowns have been worse than anyone anticipated. And I'm like, I'm sorry, almost anyone anticipated. I'm like, well, who are the almost anyone who didn't anticipate a terrible thing with these school shutdowns? I did. My wife did. Everyone did. By the way, the children like under age 5 who were either born during the last 2 years or were below 5 over the last 2 years, they have been set back hugely. The ability to see people's faces and read facial cues is hugely important for the development of mental capacity. It just is. A lot of these people were wearing masks in their house, isolating their children. It's insane. We already took education from these kids and made it indoctrination a long time ago, and then now we're taking even that from them. Again, the chaos and the damage is the point. We have to stop assuming these people actually want solutions or they want what's best for people. they did, a lot of these problems wouldn't exist. Peace and safety. To Big Chungus's point, peace and safety. Let's track everything that you're ever going to do and say. If you say the wrong thing, we'll get you kicked out because we need peace and safety. These are the people who will sacrifice your children for their money and their power and their authority. They'll defund the police in these poor neighborhoods that are crime-ridden, and then they'll hire their own police force to protect their houses. They're perfectly willing to sacrifice all of us for their power. And we need to keep that in mind too. Guys, love y'all. I know this was short. It's just, I don't think that there didn't need to be any gilding of the lily. The scriptures are there. It says it plain. God is a God of order, not chaos. This chaos is not of God. The confusion is not of God. We need to recognize it for what it is and proceed accordingly. I will be on Daniela's show. She has one this evening at 4:00. I will not be on Texas Front Porch tomorrow. Kristen will be there and sitting in for me. I've got some things I'm going to be doing. Awesome things. Also, Alan, our friend in Kenya, if you have, again, $5 or $10, it's going to mean more to him than pretty much anyone else. Just PayPal me the money. I cover all the costs of sending it out to him at the end of every month. So I love y'all. Let's stay in the Word. Let's keep praying for one another. Let's keep praying for God's will and courage to stand. This is a time to stand. Let's pray for that courage and the wisdom to stand in the right places at the right times in the right ways. Love y'all, and I'll catch y'all later. Be good.